Good evening, welcome. There was a bit of double button pushing going on in the background there. So you got to see all of us a second too early. I'm Steve. Welcome back to the channel. This, of course, is Band of Badgers, and we are talking this evening to Pocket Bard. So I am not your host. I will not be conducting this interview. I am here also to introduce, for the first time doing an interview live on our channel, Matt. The lovely Matt has been a great advocate for Pocket Bard. He has brought them to our attention, and he's set this up. So, Pocket Bard, thank you very much for agreeing to the interview. Thank you very much for coming along. I had the pleasure of using Pocket Bard at my table game about a week ago. First time I used it. Normally, I was setting up, playlists and all the rest of it. But one of my players introduced me to Pocket Bard. We played it. They had great fun using it. I didn't have control, so they found the sound effects, and all chaos broke loose after that. So, thank you very much for coming on. I will put up a banner now, so if people are interested in Pocket Bard, finding out a little bit more, you can of course go to that location that's on the screen at the moment. But stick around, find out more from the people themselves. So Chase and Alex, welcome, and Matt, over to you.
Over to me. Welcome, guys. Just want to say there's something about that seeing Pocket Bard and that intro video. It's just such a wholesome feeling, and I don't know if it's just me kind of fanning out a little bit, because I like Steve said, I'm a bit advocate for you guys. It's just nice because from the get-go you're just immersed. Like it's nice. So I guess what I want to kind of start off with is, where did it come from? Where did, because I had Pocket Bard a while ago, and they released a new one as well, but where did the idea come from?
Chase, if you want to take that, go for it.
For sure. So I did not grow up playing TTRPGs, D&D. I knew, I had heard of D&D, of course, but somehow, nerd that I was, it missed me. Until 2019, I was then dating my now wife, and one of her friends had a campaign going and invited me to come sit in and play for a session. And I was like, sure, okay, why not? I'll give it a try. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but from that first session, I was hooked. I was extremely impressed with the experience. It was this kind of like nice balance of immersive storytelling and having fun rolling dice and describing, combat. And our DM was doing voices. He had terrains and minis. He had the lights low, and he had music going. And I was just incredibly impressed. And I can't remember now if it was that first session or I came back for a second session. It was a slightly different configuration. But either way, it was just this incredible experience. And afterward, I was kind of thinking back and had realized or had noticed during the session that as our DM was playing music, when the action in the game changed, he had to kind of go heads down for a minute to keep up with the music and the lighting and all this stuff. And it was kind of this like interruption in the flow. And that's normal at a tabletop game to some degree, but to the extent that it was possible, I kind of saw that. So I come from a music technology background. I just talked to him after the game and said, hey, if I could make you an app where you could change the music like that, but it was only, one button click, and you didn't have to, search through all your playlists and stuff. It was just kind of easy. Would that be useful? And of course he was like, yeah, of course that would be useful. And so Alex and I were already working together on some things at the time. I brought the idea to him. And that was kind of where the initial, first drafts of the music for Pocket Bard and like UI wireframes were all kind of born out of that conversation.
So like you said, your experience there, because the DM was playing music, and I completely understand what you mean about the heads down thing. So one of my big bugbears about breaking immersion is rolling initiative, because that's another period where it's head down, writing numbers down, stuff like that. So having that ambience of the music and the lighting, is that also where the inspiration came from with the app visuals as well? Because with the app visuals, you're themed with the music as well, aren't you? So we have got some sort of background video of the app in progress. I'm just going to put one up now.
Sure.
No, it's not that one.
That's us. That's our team. Our third team member,
guys.
Jason.
Right. There we go. So do you want to talk through this, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, the visuals in the app have developed quite a bit over time. We knew from the beginning that we wanted to kind of focus on design in a way that was communicating as much as possible about what you were going to get out of like each kind of tap and click in the app as possible. We didn't want it to be ambiguous what was happening, but we also wanted to pack a ton of context into those button clicks so that you could almost intuitively configure things without having to do too much brain processing to figure out, okay, this is a forest, so I'm going to need wind and maybe birds. And like, I also want music that's like a little magical, but also, those are the kinds of decisions that you don't want to be making at the table. And so the visuals kind of evolved from our vision for interacting in that way.
Yeah.
And I come from a background, like Chase and I both went to music school, right? With Chase kind of focusing in on video game and audio technology. And I was like a film scoring major. So we've always been kind of at the crossroads of like multimedia, right? Like I was writing music for visual mediums. So considering that and the interplay of that has always been something that's important. And like Chase mentioned, when it comes to the design of the app and the visuals, it really is kind of a like form follows function approach, right? We're trying to like, if you're scrolling through all these scenes very quickly, how can we make the art functional so that you can quickly identify what you're looking for without having them all blend together while still kind of having a uniform brand identity that's, like Chase had kind of alluded to, has developed a lot over the past few years.
Yeah. So can you explain that creative process as well, like what goes into the audio design, the composer insights, all that kind of stuff? Because there's a lot of scenes, and now with your new launch, there's lots of scenes within scenes, lots of genres in there, all of your all your variation drop downs. So it's like having an orchestra in your phone, and it all rolls into one as well. It doesn't just stop and start. It progressively builds, drops, and then even if you kind of change the scene, it then kind of rolls into that new scene. So I'd love to know how that process happens.
I think we started this came at a time when I think Chase and I were both really anxious and excited to get back doing audio and music, right? I was doing real estate at the time and it was not a good fit. And, there was a lot of career pivots that, had taken multiple journeys where I think neither of us were super excited about our existing career trajectories. So the first, like back in 2019, the first choice about music was just like, it's an empty canvas. What do I want to do right now? Right? Like, what am I excited about? What are some just very standard classic fantasy locations or scenes that we want to cover, right? Obviously, like a town, a city, a forest, a graveyard. There were so many just obvious ones that at first I guess you kind of could go just on intuition, right? You know what standard fantasy scenes are that are used, right? So but as we've started to evolve, we've had to kind of, as your question was implying, like become more thoughtful about where do we prioritize our efforts, right? Like what are our missing bases? What are the things that, if our mission is to make tabletop role-playing game audio simple, seamless, and adaptive, what are the things that we're missing that make us fail at delivering that value, right? Like if a player is, or if a campaign goes to a setting that we really have nothing to cover, we're basically forcing anybody who wants to use Pocket BARD to go find an alternate for that section. So that really means that we're not meeting the value we're trying to offer. So I guess as a fundamental, we want to make sure that nobody has to split their workflow to different playlists, right? Back to managing playlists for any specific thing, while also being conscious that we want to have as much flexibility as possible, right? There's certain extremely niche things that while could be extremely useful to some people, we still have some big bases to cover that are useful for a lot of people. So it's a balancing act, and always trying to remove our own bias, because I know Chase and I, for example, are big sci-fi nerds. I'm always like, how can I justify writing some more sci-fi music? It's like, is that what people are asking for? No. Yeah, but maybe they just don't know they want it, you know?
So that was one of the things I noticed first off when I was looking at the Pocket Bard app, is you have a sci-fi section. I mean, that's not usual, as you said, and I love Alien RPG, and like getting miniatures and getting terrain and sounds for that is always difficult. So I appreciate you making more sci-fi, please. I am asking for it. Go and do it. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Classic, we
is that a Pez dispenser?
It is, and this is a original Pizza Hut Jar Jar Binks big Amazing. Coca-Cola lid.
we don't have cup sizes that large in the UK. So.
I was going to say there's like a pot, like a flower pot to me.
That's culture right there.
Culture. Yeah. When the film came out, I remember there was a massive craze on eBay for collecting the sick bags off the Virgin airline flights.
Oh dear.
We've digressed. I'm gonna put on some of the sample sounds that we have from Pocket Bard. Can you talk to us about how you start is a group thing, that if that's too loud, I apologize. So how do you start that creative process when you're going off and composing that piece of music? You know, where do you start with that composition?
So that one I wrote back in 2021. That's some of the town music, I believe.
It was, yeah. Sorry, it was the town music. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a variety of ways you can start, right? I like to use art as inspiration. So I will very often find artwork that is really communicating the vibe that I want to create, that I feel like is representative, that really immerses me in that type of environment. And then I try to fit the art. And what I'll often do is, again, like I mentioned, I've kind of trained to write music for film, is imagine a storyline, right, in this setting. And I will, in my session, in the music session, actually lay out different markers in the track to like score an imaginary movie to. Sometimes I'll even pull in clips from movies and score to that. So there's like a kind of a built-in emotional or narrative arc to that. And that really helps me to, I don't know, like really know whether or not it gives some objectivity to a very free, open, boundless creative task. So having beats that I like have to hit gives a little bit of that constrained creativity to actually make it doable in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming.
I think that comes through as well, because those kind of like anchor point. It's a weird one because again, I sit at the front, DMing the table, and you look around the room, and you can see people kind of like tuning in to certain like anchors. So I guess that's kind of what you've been hitting against. I was gonna go into it and actually say as well. You've got a one-shot section, haven't you, on the app, where you can actually tailor your own campaign. So what I tend to use it for is what I go through. I pre-pick all of the songs, all of the scenes that I want to line up for that session. So I'm not necessarily one shot, but say session. I don't know what we're on, like 191. You can just keep going, and you can then remove it all and tailor it again. So I also know that's quite a cool feature. I was wondering if you guys wanted to talk about any of the new features that you've released in this new version that may be different to what some people may have seen previously on the older versions.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to some of that. So just to give some context, one of the things that we from the technical side try to make sure we're maintaining throughout Pocket BARD is, like you mentioned earlier, the kind of seamless transitions and seamlessness in general of, as you're changing things throughout the app, you're not like hitting points where there's abrupt silence or abrupt sound and things kind of feel very natural. I mean, the gold standard for us is that like your players shouldn't notice, oh, the music changed. They should just feel the emotional change, and then maybe when they check in with that, they go, oh, okay, it's because the music. Ah, that's cool. So extending from that, we knew that a lot of the dimensions that we covered with our previous set of controls, so like being able to select a scene that gives you music and sound effect kind of context, that dimensionality wasn't quite enough for certain things. So for example, setting sail, one of my favorite scenes from our seafaring, it's got this awesome kind of beginning of the adventure vibe to it. And the obvious kind of sound effect context is you're on the top deck of like a sailing vessel. But we kind of thought, well, that's cool, but just a tiny variation in the story all of a sudden makes the sound kind of feel wrong. What if everything is all the same except you're below decks in like a map room planning or something, but you want everything exactly the same? Well, previously that would have been a pretty difficult thing to do with Pocket BARD, to kind of just make that little change to make it not wrong. Well, we in Pocket BARD 3.0 introduced this feature that we're calling ambience variations, where within a particular scene, if let's say the context like that, maybe indoor or outdoor or something like that, is just like a small tweak to the context of the sounds, you'll be able to select from this drop down, like in setting sail, kind of above decks or below decks, and that changes all of the ambiences that you could be playing to kind of fit that context much more deeply. So if you've got the waves going, if you've got our location ambience going, anything like that, like selecting below decks will make all of those things kind of fit to that new context. And that's one of my favorite of the new features.
Was that very difficult to implement?
Yes and no. Conceptually, it was pretty easy to map out and plan. Yeah. I think the difficult parts were trying to make sure that things adapted smoothly, and then just being super thorough in kind of as the complexity of the interactivity matrix goes up, the complexity of maintaining it goes up. And so making sure we're going through and kind of testing different scenarios and making sure, oh, if you've added, crowd to the merchant scene and you select this variation, does that make sense? Does it sound right? And if not, tweaking it, figuring out what does sound right, and just kind of trying to take that big picture view of that interactivity.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sound effect? Point blank. Because I do, and it is the splash.
That is a good one. The original name for that was we have the body fall sound effect.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, originally splash was called body fall wet, and it was like originally introduced as like the same thing as body fall, but what if it's into water? And yeah, after a while we changed the name to splash. We thought that fit a little bit better.
Yeah, mine is laser. Is it still called laser weapon, Chase?
Plasma. I think it's plasma cannon.
That's
one
right.
of the sci-fi weapon ones. Yeah,
definitely.
That's a favorite at conventions. People like to come up and they hit it once and then they hit it a lot of times because we got the big speakers up, and it's fun.
I got thoroughly annoyed by the wolf howl when we was playing the other week, because I didn't have control over it, and they just got fixated with wolf howls every 10 seconds. That was going off.
I love the wolf howl. I love the players can often just get, so my table, huge RPs absolutely love the RP factor, and they can just talk. So sometimes if they're talking too much and they're outside, I'm just like, wolf howl, and suddenly it's like, oh, we should move. And it's like, yeah, exactly. So for me, it's also a way to kind of get those guys back on track, because you start tapping it, and suddenly there's a lot more wolves the longer they hang around.
Can I give you an audio nerd's answer to your question about favorite sound effect? This is
please.
So for me, my favorite sound effect isn't just a single sound effect in the app. It's a combination. I really love the combination of the tavern location ambience at a low level plus the crowd at a low level. I will put that on as just ambient sound when I'm working. I will put that on and even if you just like put that on and nothing else, it's a very kind of soothing sound to have as an ambient bed. So I think that's my favorite.
That's quite a cool one. I've not tried that yet, but I did find myself. I think I was just going through them, think, oh, this is cool, yeah, in preparation for one of our Haven days away, and I think my wife came in and said, "What you listen to?" And for about 2-3 hours, I just had Pocket Bard on and completely zoned out and forgot it was. And I was just doing it while writing the session up, so that was great. So I think you're right. It's got that kind of like ocean waves, kind of like wind, heavy rain vibe you just tune out to. So no more coffee shops. I've got it all at home. Sit there and do my thing.
Coffee shops.
We've got coffee shops at home. We've got our questions come through the chat. I'm going to read it out. Do you find yourself inspired by mainstream soundtracks of fantasy-based movies? You mentioned seafaring. Have you wanted to do some epic homage to Pirates of the Caribbean?
Oh, we've got some of that.
Epic homage.
If you go to the seafaring combat music at full intensity, that was very inspired by Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm a big fan of that soundtrack, and from a broader standpoint, definitely inspired by movies, right? And part of what we try to do conceptually with the music is find something that is what people expect, but also our own little bit of a unique take on it, right? We don't want somebody to select a scene and be like, this isn't at all what I want. But we also don't want it to be just like totally neutral, as middle of the road as possible. So similar to the art style that we've evolved over time, we've taken a little bit more on the kind of playful, fun approach, right? So Town is a good example of the kind of style of the kind of what differentiates our style, I think. It comes from, I don't know if you're familiar with the game Fable. Russell Shaw's soundtrack to Fable and Fable 2 was like a big influence of mine growing up. And it's just this kind of a little bit more quirky, a little bit more playful sound. So while obviously, for example, our horror music is not, I wouldn't describe as playful, it still does have a little bit like some moments of fun, not quite fun, but it's a little bit, has moments of levity that are not just total like, the Conjuring style, just dissonant fear the whole time. And the fantasy music is not like dark, gritty Game of Thrones all the time. So yeah, definitely using it for reference, but also trying to bring our own style to it. And each of us have different musical intuitions, right? I am now not the only person that writes music for the app, thankfully. But for the years that I was finding my own kind of music style with that, right? I've written, I think, 10 hours of music for the app or something like that. It's quite a lot, probably somewhere around there. And looking back on the whole catalog, now I can see, okay, where do I feel like my unique or my musical intuitions shine through the most in a differentiated way? So for me, I've kind of discovered that for myself, whereas 5 years ago, I wouldn't have known like what's my music sound like versus, the average thing. What's my tone? When you hear Hans Zimmer, you're like, I know who that is, right? Or John Williams, right? There's just a flair that they have.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. And I found some of mine, and it's a little bit of kind of a minimalistic, modern style. I think Space Station is one that I feel like represents kind of my musical intuitions, something it's kind of similar to the contemporary composer John Adams, more minimalist, just kind of playing around with different I grew up playing like prog metal and stuff like that, so different multimeter types of things. But yeah, it's a process of discovery to give you a long-winded answer to a straightforward question.
No, it's great. I guess while you're playing around with all your music, I use the term playing. When you're playing around with all your music composing, using all your back instruments, does anything not make the cut, and why might that be?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say sometimes during the composition process, like 90% of stuff doesn't make the cut. But it's just like a few measures, right? I'm like, these measures don't work. Let's try something else here. Let's try something else here. So in the actual composition process, like per measure, per minute of music, there's a lot of ideas that get tried and thrown out. However, when it comes to a track being tossed, that does happen occasionally, but I try to quit before I spend too much time on a track that's not going to work. That being said, I'm working on overhauling some of the Springvale music. And I've had a lot of trouble with that, honestly. I wrote that originally back in a previous project that Chase and I worked on, that we ended up migrating some of those assets. And I wrote that almost 10 years ago. And I don't know, I'm having trouble getting back in the headspace. So sorry to everybody who's, waiting for some Springvale improvements.
Got to get back into the headspace.
Yeah.
It's when you guys were creating Pocket Bard, and with the launch of 3.0, what was the target audience? Was it, say, a certain franchise, or was it the tabletop community in general? Would you guys end up potentially pushing more into, say, we just say D&D and the Underdark regions? Kind of, where do you see yourselves going with that front?
Yeah, I think we definitely try to appeal to tabletop gaming or tabletop RPGs in general. And we're definitely trying to be very mindful of how we proportion the kind of different offerings we have in our catalog by what's popular, but also what are the things that we can do well. What do we have the resources to build? It's a balancing act between all of those things. I think ideally we really want to focus on like the people who are interested in playing games that kind of lean into the imaginative, immersive aspect of things. And yeah, I mean, if you're doing that, theoretically, you're our target audience as far as the like genre of music and things like that go.
Yeah, even as you were saying earlier, but when you put that combination of just the ambient sounds on with the crowd in the bar, just having something like that playing in the background, you're not paying attention to it, but it makes you. Like as you say, it's something to work to as well. It's just crowd noise in the background. It's just relaxing. It gets you into that headspace. So I really like that use of it. Actually, I'd never thought about it because I'd always, we've always played background music and the battle music, so like that. But just having the ambient sounds is, I'm going to try that next time playing. We'll give that a go. But no,
it's great for writing.
Yeah. We've actually tried to emphasize, we actually felt like that was a highly underutilized use of the app, which is why we actually, I don't know if you remember the old version of the app, but there was not an off button for music. It was just explore, combat, and victory, and you just tapped it again to turn it off. We wanted to encourage with this new version of the app for people to have music in a state of off, right? Not using music all the time. Right, having just an ambience bed of some light tavern sound, and you go outside and the birds are chirping, just setting the stage for everything and not having the music always be present. Because like you said, you will have an ambience on and you could forget about it for 10 hours, right? If it's mild enough, if it's not intrusive. Whereas music, even if you have an hour long of music in a single location, you will start to notice if you have it on for 10 hours, right? So the off music state combined with encouraging people to use music at lower intensities where there's not as much melody coming in, where it's a little more sparse. That's something that we've been trying to encourage with this new version of the app.
We do have some slides I sort of put up earlier, so I'm just going to show them now. So this is the third member of your team as well, who is your programmer. Is that correct?
He is our CTO. Yeah.
So did the three of you work together before? Because I know Alex and Chase, you both worked together before on a previous podcast. Were you childhood friends? Is that where the relationship started?
Yeah, so Jason and I were childhood friends. He moved to my hometown in 5th grade, and we grew up together and in upstate New York in like a small town. And we were some of the few people that left, right? Didn't really want to stick around in that upstate New York region. So we both went to school in Boston, and we were friends through Boston. And Chase was actually the first person I met at the ratings auditions for our college. So I've known Chase for, that was 2012, so 13 years, and Jason for 21 years, something like that. Wow, that's crazy. I never did the math.
Don't do it again.
Yeah.
I think what I really like is kind of like I mentioned before, that immersion, that wholesome feeling. So community, I find it's kind of like a big part of what we do, and it looks like also it's kind of like a big part of what you guys do. Have you had any good news stories from community impact? Because like I said, you're my official jukebox. So have you had anything else come through from that front following the release of 3.0?
As you ask the question, I'm imagining Jeanette right now, like screaming at the screen, like, say this thing. And I think Alex and I have been so heads down in the production of the app itself. I'm struggling to think of an answer, but we hear all the time from people who are using Pocket BARD for incredible, awesome, creative things, and yeah, it's so heartwarming every single time somebody sends us a message. And we're a small team. We work in a small office together, and sometimes we'll hear either Nick or Jeanette saying like, "Oh, we just got this email from these people who are using Pocket BARD for this cool thing." There was an immersive interactive theater production off Broadway a couple of weeks ago that was doing like a preview thing, and they were using Pocket BARD for some soundscapes in the show. So we actually went and saw the show, and it was super cool to kind of see Pocket BARD in a new context. And I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, just people who reach out, and the impact is more than kind of just adding immersion or immersive audio to their games, right? When it's somebody says like, oh, this actually helps me like perform basic life chores because I want to have like a controlled audio environment, right? Like this helps me just function day to day because I can rely on it, and I can control the intensity of the ambience, and it's not like bothering me, right? People have like sensory overload sensitivities, stuff like that, or so we hear some great I love hearing those alternate uses where, again, like it's enough for us to support people in their game audio journeys. But when it goes beyond that, and it's something, it's like it really improves the quality of life beyond the table, that's also always really great to hear.
Now, so I did have some of the artwork in the slides. Are these concepts? Yeah, are these the concept scenes for the recent release?
Yeah, it looks like everything you've shown so far, that's all from the recent release. And I forget the exact origin of how this happened, but a while back, I know Jeanette had been working on some branding things for this was early when we were working on 3.0 earlier this year, and had kind of worked through some artistic concepts with Emily, the artist who actually drew all the things, and the two of them came up with kind of a concept for how some new scene artwork would look. And if I recall correctly, they did a few, but the plan was to kind of mix and match. Like they were only going to do some of the new scenes. And then once we saw the new artwork and kind of saw the vision that they had put together, we had decided we just need to overhaul everything. So all of the artwork that you're seeing is brand new for this kind of 3.0 launch. And we're super happy with it.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. And you're not that big a team, are you? I mean, how many people actually went into producing and releasing this version 3?
So we do have some people who work with us off and on, like composers, right? Who might write music for a scene or two or something like that. So not counting people like that, we have a team of 10, not all full time, right? I think 5 of us are full time, and then another 5 part time, more or less so for some people. So it's realistically, yeah, that's a team size plus or minus some team members who come in for specific tasks, compositions, which feels big to us because we were doing it as a team of 3 for so long. So having a bigger team feels nice.
Yeah.
So part of your team, Didi, Lionel, Mappy, Cloudy, where do they all come from? and why can't I see Mappy the something? You've got Didi the dies, you got was it Lionel the loot? What happened to Mappy and Cloudy? It's Mappy and Cloudy. I just kind of picture Dora's backpack at this point. Since gone out of it.
Yeah, so originally Jeanette designed the logo for us, and it was an old version of it. I don't know if we're banned from showing it, if it's, but it was like
dig through the internet, you'll find it.
Yeah, you'll find it. But it was like similar to what we have now of the loot and the die, but the loot was made out of kind of like a conglomeration of different assets that were available, right? And we loved it. But when we came to do like a full rebrand last year, we wanted to get it designed from scratch based on that with an artist. So we hired an awesome artist from Italy, Sarah. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. It starts with an R. I can send it. But she did an incredible job taking what we had and making it feel more friendly, right? More playful, more kind of in the brand style that we wanted. And we really felt like that resonated. And as Jeanette and Emily started to make more assets that felt like that, right? Little banners for our internal documents, right? Putting together the color palette, it started to really take shape, the whole kind of brand identity. And eventually we had so many of our internal things looking like this way in our social media posts. And then we're like, okay, now the art feels kind of out of place, right? And then, so like Chase had mentioned, then ended up going all the way with that, and Emily took that to the finish line.
But the characters themselves were the brainchildren of Jeanette, kind of using consistent assets over and over and kind of seeing them as consistent, like a consistent cast of characters as she would come up with, what should we do for this artwork for like this announcement where we're talking about this feature? Oh, well, let's have, a map at the table holding a wand that's, and this one can be wearing a hat. And yeah, it grew from there.
I just
we like it a lot.
I just think they're really cool. I like the little tutorial as well. They take you through in the app. It's almost a shame to say goodbye to them after that, as they went away and did their own thing. Do you guys
find ways to bring them back? Yeah.
Bring them back. It's like I missed the old paperclip from Marcus.
Yes, so, exactly.
So when that wizard came out, I was all over it. So no, bring them back. Bring them back. Do you guys relate to any of them? Like, is one of you a Mappy? One of you a Cloudy?
There's definitely been those discussions in the office.
I thought it might have been.
Yeah.
You're such a duty.
I can't remember if we specifically, any of us were like a one-to-one of any of them, but I know our dogs were Jeanette and Chase's dog and my dog Teddy. I know I think wait, which was Teddy? Was he DD or Lionel? I think he was Lionel.
I can't remember now which one's which, but I think you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know, Chase, you said you came to tabletop role playing later on, but do either of you DM at all?
Oh yes.
So do you can you share your most favorite story using Pocket Bard at your table during one of your sessions?
That's a good question.
It'd be funny if Chase was like, "Oh, I don't actually use Pocket Bard."
Yeah, imagine.
Can you imagine? No, I make extensive use
this instead.
Yeah.
I make extensive use of Pocket Bard. Wow, a specific instance isn't coming to mind at the moment. I'll say this. Again, coming back to Alex and I being big sci-fi people. So I recently ran a little like 3-session mini adventure using the Traveler system.
Yeah.
Which I'm a huge fan of Traveler. Like I did earlier, I literally have the book within reach. And being able to like very easily and intuitively track the action of the adventure as we went, and just kind of like, we spend all this time imagining how people are using the app and trying to kind of emulate that, even like sitting at our desks doing design work, like trying to emulate that. And that's one thing, but to experience it yourself after you've built it is just such a cool confirming experience. And the session that I ran was kind of a little bit of a light horror, and being able to watch the players at the table be focused on what was going on, being able to have them emotionally react as I changed the soundscape to like moments that were more tense versus a little bit safer. Like they got the cues without me having to do extra work of like, oh, okay, now we can like, we're investigating the computer here. We don't have to be like super paranoid about, is something going to crawl down the hallway? But then I could just change the soundscape a little bit. And when they're moving from this room to this room, they all know to be kind of on alert. And it's all these like subtle moments, and just that's so much fun when all those things kind of land that way, and such confirmation of the work that we've been putting into it. I think, yeah, it's not a specific moment, but it's a that stands out to me.
Yeah, so like your site does a good. I like your site. It's very community based, and you have testimonial session, which I really liked. And there's some good stories on there. My favorite one was just one line. It says, "Pocket Bard made me a better DM." Yeah, that was it. So talking about tension, stuff like music really lends itself to building tension. I love Alien RPG, and that is all about building tension. So using music, and as you said, it makes your life that little bit easier because you're not trying to build the tension by describing everything that's going on. You don't have to describe those little sounds in the background. You can just put it on.
You can do.
And I will say, in response to that as well, like I definitely appreciate that feedback from that person. We put that there because we also thought that was just such a fun way to kind of express their like when we got that review, we thought that was such a fun way to express that. But I really think that when push comes to shove, Pocket Bard isn't making anybody a better DM or anything like that. Like it's very much a sidekick to the main experience. DMing a game is such a labor of love. When it goes well, it's this beautiful experience, and we're really focused on just kind of augmenting that. We say all the time, like, Pocket Bard is there to get out of your way. And I think it's really important to emphasize that, like, at no point is Pocket Bard designed to be the star of the show. It really is this supporting element of things.
That's a great description.
And that helps us to narrow down on our like brand identity too, is right. We want to be a supportive sidekick, right? And that informs how we communicate, right? It works with that more fun, playful, like positive vibe, right? We're not trying to be the big epic hero, right? Fighting everything. We want to be there to support your journey, whatever that is.
So I wanted to pick up on something with that as well, because again, when you go to your site, you go to lengths to explain about how your pricing program works, because you have a subscription-based pricing program, and that subscription-based pricing program gives you access to other things. However, you're using that to fund your development so you can keep your core elements free, which I think is really good. That's a really good way of giving back to the community. So I applaud you for that. I really appreciate that. Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, that's probably the thing we get the most pushback on. And, we've just done a lot. When we were thinking about our pricing strategy, we knew we needed to do something that made us enough money to keep building the app, right? We have a long-term vision of the app. We spent the last 9 months rebuilding it from scratch, basically, because we needed to actually deliver on the goals and the value that we're trying to. So when we're getting started back in like 2021, 2022, we thought a lot about like, okay, so how do the incentives line up? What do they encourage us to do? Where do they encourage us to devote our time and energy? So we kind of modeled out what like a one-time purchase system would look like. And the reality is it didn't add up to what we needed to do to build the app over 10 years and involve new technology. Like, we have 3 developers on the team, right? And if anything, we need more, right? If we're a one-time purchased app, the incentive is to release more content, right? And sometimes that's not what's actually going to add the most value to the users. We could have just spent everything we've spent on this new app on more content, but then what, right? Do we release Town 2, right? Town 3, like City Corridors West, right? And
I mean, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there is a legitimate like product you could build with that model, and I definitely understand the pushback, right? Like, people want to own stuff. They don't want to feel like things have been ripped away. But when you're looking at a digital technology, we have ongoing expenses where we pay for AWS or other softwares that we have a recurring bill for. So, to pay for these recurring bills, we need to have some sort of recurring revenue, and to be able to devote that to whatever our users need at the time in a predictable way, where also our team can have security, right? I don't want to have to think about laying somebody off because our sales were down this month, right? This is something that's recurring that we can build responsibly.
Yeah.
And like you said, we have a vast majority of our users are free users, and that's awesome, right? We don't want people to have to pay to have a complete Pocket Bard experience, right? If you want to go and play a classic fantasy campaign, we hope that you can do that without anything, without paying a dime, right? And the people who choose to support us, because it's recurring, we can then effectively devote resources and build the app that we envision. So I understand why we get pushback about it. People want to not feel like everything, it's like the classic thing in comments. It's like, own nothing and you'll be happy about it, right? But it really is not trying to be a predatory thing or trying to just max out milk the users, right? That's not at all what it is. It's just the reality of our current economy and what we need to do to deliver value to our team, to our users, and to our community. So don't really see any other pricing system that has kind of the right trade-offs.
Yeah.
I think that's great, to be honest.
Yeah, so do I. I agree. We have a question from chat which I had ignored, so I'll stick up on the screen. Sorry, Matt.
How do you generate the sounds? Yeah, that's a good question. How do you generate the sounds?
Sorry.
Is it all electronic? What instruments do you play? Do you record the really real world around us? That's from Dave. Dave's behind the scenes controlling all of this as well. So best read his question out.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chase. Yeah.
I was going to say the answer is all of the above.
Yeah.
But Alex, why don't you dive a little deeper on the music side, and I'm happy to speak to the sound effects side.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, starting out, like most of it is like virtual instruments, which, come from samples. So basically, players are hired to go into a recording studio, and then they play like every different variety of every different note. And then there's technology that lets, the user, me, control all of those samples to kind of try to recreate a performance. That's great. It's, allowed us to create the music, the amount of music that's in the app. If we had hired a full orchestra for all of this, I'm not joking that probably would have cost, I don't know, $5 million, something like that. I don't know. Something like crazy, right?
Yeah.
However, there is a big trade-off there, which is it's not the same as hiring a live musician. Right, a sampled, mocked up violin is never going to sound as good as a real performer. So there are those trade-offs that as we get a bigger budget, we're starting to hire more and more live performers to bring a lot more life to the performances. So for example, Desert was the first, other than Tavern, Desert was the first collection that we brought a bunch of musicians into a studio and recorded. And in my opinion, it just feels so alive relative to, music in the app that doesn't have any of those live players. You think about it, these people have been playing and performing and refining their craft their whole life. You bring 6 of them onto a track, that's 6, if they've been playing for 30 years each, that's what, 180, it's my math right, 180 years of like study and like practice. Like that's crazy. And you scale that up to an orchestra, 60 people times 30, it's crazy. Yeah. So I personally also try to add live instruments where I can. And one of our composers, one of our composers, Colin, he's been playing a bunch of stuff on his tracks as well. And we have a cool upcoming scene that's got some live instruments as well. But I play guitar, whistles. So like tin whistle, I record those on some of the scenes. I recorded that on some of the seafaring, like Irish low whistle, like some other stringed instruments. And sometimes, we'll find some people to sing some background stuff. But there's some instruments too that just sound worse mocked up than others. Yeah. A piano, for example, because there's no like dynamics in the sense of each note decays, right? You hit it and there's an attack and then a decay. You can sample that in a way that gets pretty close to a realistic sound. However, if you're like a woodwind instrument or something where you're blowing and you're like creating the arc of the sound, you can't sample every possible variation of that. So either you have to really work to manipulate that sound to try to get it to feel like that, or much easier, if you have the resources, just hire somebody to do it and make it sound great.
I think it's also important to point out, and I'll speak to the sound effects side in a second, but I think it's also important to point out, I have here the like details page of one of the desert scenes, and it was super important to us that everybody who was a part of that scene is credited in there. So you can go in and see when we've had live players on different music tracks and things, you'll see all their names in there to make sure that we're giving credit where credit is due to some of the amazing talent that we've had the fortune to work with. I will also point out that the tavern scene that Alex briefly mentioned was our first foray into fully live production. And we got together with some songwriters and a small band and went into a studio and recorded all this interactive music live, which was such an incredible experience. There will be more on that soon. So follow Pocket BARD stuff for more detail. But yes, and just briefly on the sound effects side of things, we do so much different stuff. We are on our team. We have a sound designer, Austin, who has kind of taken over for me on the sound design front. And even when I was working on the sound design, and Austin still does the same thing, it's a combination of sounds that we're getting from like we've licensed from certain sound effects libraries so that we can manipulate them to like craft kind of the Pocket BARD sound. And it's also like stuff that we've gone out and recorded in the environment, taken microphones out, you know, recording oddball things, and then again manipulating these sounds to kind of make what we need from it, and combine that with kind of synthetic stuff, synthesizers, sampled things, all of the above when it comes to the sound design.
I like how you went on to that light scoop about that whole it's all good together, like some music. I was going to actually ask you. You've just released 3.0, so I know you're not there right now, but do you want to share any insights to your roadmap? Any will happens? Any pipe dreams? Is that too much of a?
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. We try to be as transparent as possible, you know, with especially on our Discord, right? We've got almost 12,000 people on there now, I think. And it's just like an awesome community for us to get feedback and announce things and see what people are excited about. Yeah, so we've got some upcoming content releases in the next few weeks. We're currently fixing a bug that needs to be fixed before we can launch any new content, but there's I will say there's 9 new scenes that should be coming out in the next like 3 weeks ish, and we have a pretty solid release cadence after that too. One of the things with this new app that we wanted to do, or that we want to demonstrate, is that we were quiet for like a long time getting this out, but the cadence that you've seen from us in the past of like launching new things is going to be way faster now. We were really limited by the technology that we had. Just introducing a little new feature would have taken what might take us. Actually, we're about to launch something now. With one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got with the new app was that we had like taken away the individual granular volume controls in the settings page, which was basically to just try to help focus in on a pre-balanced, pre-curated experience. But our community kind of had a lot of feedback on that and said, you know, well, I really need to be able to manipulate the individual sounds or the master volume because X, Y, and Z. And we just were convinced by that. We're like, yeah, that's a good point. And we're already ready to launch that feature like 2 weeks after, it's 3 weeks after launch. So we're just fixing a few bugs, but that turnaround time of hearing from the community, designing, building a new feature and deploying it, I think it's going to be much faster. So, I mean, the main big thing from the user standpoint, other than new content, will be probably a desktop app. That's like big priority number 1, or at least some form of a desktop app, right? Whatever that form that takes, we're have a bunch of kind of designs in the pipeline of like the best way to approach that. But we want to be able to cover people who want to use it on a computer that's not a phone.
Yeah.
I did search for that a while ago. On that same note, because I know there's another question in the chat as well. Anything towards like boss battles or the big bad, something a bit more up there, rather than just setting that scene? Anything around that coming? Something in minor.
Yeah.
I'll say yes and no. I mean, yes, just in the sense that like more music is coming and there will be more and more things that will be appropriate for that kind of a thing. I think on the current roadmap, at least for the next couple of months, so the way that we construct our content roadmap, we're very much just constrained by resources and being able to kind of plan what can we put money into, you know, paying composers to produce or producing in-house or whatever. And we have a couple of things that are like high in the priority list, but we have a big backlog of stuff that we know people want. And that backlog certainly includes what you were just asking about, of like very focused, like this is a boss battle type of scene. But the immediate roadmap that we've already kind of like plotted out, here's exactly what's going to happen over the next couple months, doesn't include that yet.
And Chase had kind of mentioned something similar to this earlier, but when it comes to the actual design of the app, any new feature, if it's a new feature across all scenes, would potentially mean we need to introduce a new variation of something for every single scene that's in the app, right? Which is currently, I think, 53, right? Soon to be more than that. So we need to be kind of conscious on the design side of so this is the goal, right? People, so from that comment, for example, it sounds like the question was asking, basically implying, I feel like I need some more intense music, right? Like I want to be able to access music when I'm in a boss encounter that really separates that out from just my standard combat music. So then we would kind of, just explaining how we would approach that from the design side, think about, okay, so if that is the core intent, and we would kind of hear from different people and ask, is that what you need, right? Like, tell me how many situations, how often would you use that? And get some more insight, and then start in the design phase of, does this make sense as a specific feature, as like overhauling music so that the intensity slider covers more intense stuff, right? Like, how would we approach that specifically, right? And I'm not giving any like answers of like how I think we're planning right now to do that, but that's philosophically how we would approach it, because all design has trade-offs, right? When we want our app to be simple, seamless, and adaptive, and so we need to avoid feature creep, right? And introducing a new control here and a new control here so that all of a sudden it's not simple anymore. However, we don't want to like leave people hanging that have these use cases that aren't covered. So we just need to kind of interpret through our design philosophy and our vision, how do we solve that person's problem and in a way that works best for our product. And sometimes I will say that takes a long time to try different versions of that until it feels right. And we've done that now many times with certain features in the app.
Right, we are a little over time, but I do want to ask this one question from chat. So we obviously have our biggest event in the UK, which will be next summer, UK Games Expo, and we might actually be pushing for the biggest convention in the world now, because it is massive. Any plans for you to come over next year?
Not currently, but I mean, that sounds fun to me. I mean,
that sounds great, but
it is massive. It's not as big as Essen for board games, but it is the biggest convention in the UK, and I believe it is now one of the biggest in the world. So if you can get over, please come along. Dave, if he was on, would be telling you all about custard creams and cups of tea. So
he would be.
He would be.
I can hear him shouting it now.
All I can promise is, if you come over, there will be custard creams and cups of tea.
All right,
you'd be more than welcome.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. DCJT11, thank you for your comment. Right, so we are going to wrap up there. I will say a big thank you to Pocket Bard, not only for coming on this evening and agreeing to do the interview. You're both really, honest, open people. Everything you talked about for the community as well. I really appreciate your just attitude to everything. It's really good, and a big thanks, of course, from Band of Badgers, because Pocket Bard have allowed us to use Pocket Bard in our studio where we film Vecna. So we will be getting no wolf howls, but we will be getting lots of ambient music, maybe lots of background. So you're not in charge of the buttons, so there'll be no wolf howls.
But I know where they are.
So I'm really looking forward, because it's a really immersive space that we've got now where we film Vecna, and having Pocket Bard as well is going to just be the icing on the cake. So thank you very much. For those of you who are interested in finding out more about Pocket Bard, there is a link there to your site. The app is available on Android and Apple. I will not spit on my floor, but it is available on Apple as well. And I know you've got Windows desktop in beta, and you'd already talked about maybe that coming next year. So it's great to hear from you. Hopefully this really takes off, and you're able to release everything that you want to do on your roadmap. And I hope it is a very, very long journey. Thank you once again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. And we will wrap up there. And I will see you next time. So goodbye for now.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. This was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words.
Stay around. Stay around. Sorry to interrupt. Stay around. We're not finished the stream, so you can stay in the green room. We're finishing for the audience. So audience, please go away. And we'll talk in a minute.
Wow.
Dave's so much smoother than I am. I don't know what it is. Right. Good night, everyone. Goodbye.
No.